Hi guys, I'm back filming another video. I just burnt my thigh on the steam mop and it really hurts. Anyway, I just thought I would come on and see how I'm doing 2 months postpartum. I'm actually 9 weeks postpartum now. I guess postpartum ends at 1 year, but I wouldn't really call it postpartum after 6 months probably, so I'm not going to keep being like this is postpartum related. In my last video I was really struggling. Well, I'm struggling 10 times more now. There's a lot I want to talk about, a lot of plans that I have and things I hope to achieve, but I'm not gonna get into that because if things aren't certain, I don't really want to talk about them. It's really hard for me to even sit down and make this video because my anxiety is at a level where I heard something, but I think it was my dryer. My anxiety is at a level where just sitting is very hard because I feel the urge to constantly distract myself. I don't want to go into too many details because from my experience, the more I talk about something, the more anxious and aware I become of it. There was stuff that I have been experiencing that I didn't plan to ever open up about because I was very concerned that people would think I was crazy. And I know I briefly mentioned in my last video that I was suffering from Alice in Wonderland syndrome, which is where things appear to suddenly get smaller or larger. My anxiety has shifted from one thing to the next over the past 3 weeks. And I've been having the strangest symptoms, and it's at a point where I'm not really sure what's psychosomatic and what is real. And I doubt myself in making this video because I wonder if people will think I'm an unfit mother because I'm having these problems. But then I realize there's so many moms out there that are really struggling with postpartum anxiety and having problems like this, which can come from tiredness or a whole number of things. And I'm gonna be the mom that is honest about it and doesn't just pretend none of that is happening. So I was struggling with Alice in Wonderland syndrome, and with the last time I filmed, basically shortly afterwards, I'd been having a lot of episodes where I was suddenly very hyper aware of objects, shapes and sizes, and it sounds very weird, but for example this salt, I would just be staring at random objects around the room and suddenly they would appear bigger or smaller, or every time I closed my eyes I would feel like I wasn't quite in my body, and I would just have a lot of flickering images every time I closed my eyes, and I just felt very out of my body, and that caused me extreme anxiety, and I would be having daily anxiety attacks. Then after that, my anxiety shifted to, I'm trying to think in order. Sorry, I had a tickle. After that, my anxiety shifted, and I had my first postpartum period. And I was very anxious during that time because I wasn't really sure if the bleeding was normal, problematic, or what it really meant. Then, after that, I started to become anxious because I noticed I was having a lot of floaters. Floaters are little black dots that float back and forth in your vision, and it's caused by fluid at the back of the eye breaking up and casting shadows. And I was having this experience and I was feeling very anxious, and I've always had floaters, but I suddenly felt like there was an increase. And I have to be honest, let me put this out there, I feel that at this time in my postpartum period I'm very anxious and depressed, and I'm experiencing what I believe is like a hyper awareness. So many things that I may have ignored before or not even noticed because I was in a normal mindset, I've become very hyper aware of. And I like to think I'm not that mentally cuckoo because I'm aware that there's a problem and I'm aware what's real and what's not. Like when I say that, like I'm aware that I am hyper aware of things, and I'm aware that certain behaviors or things I'm feeling are not normal. Whereas if I was like totally cuckoo, I would just think what I'm feeling and seeing is always real, you know? Anyway, so after I noticed the increase in floaters, I decided to go to the optician. I wanted to make sure that I didn't have a detached retina. And that's when I started going into what I call a hypochondria phase. I have phases where I get severe hypochondria, become aware of every bodily problem, symptom, and I Google it extensively. Then I convince myself I have worst case scenario, then I have panic attacks, and it's just a repeat. So then I got cleared for that from the optician, so I slowly started to not notice the floaters. Which tells me that because the floaters became less apparent, my anxiety was what was making me notice them more, not necessarily that they increased. Because once I got the reassurance I needed, my anxiety shifted again. So then after that, I started having anxiety where I noticed when I looked up at the ceiling or at like lined objects, like the corners of my walls, like this line here, that it started to like flicker or shake or vibrate. And then I started hardcore staring at everything around my house, like windows, everything that was patterned or had a sharp line, like bookcases. And I started to notice they all were like vibrating or almost seemed like they were just moving a little. And then I started to become very anxious, and of course I Googled it, and it came up with something called, I think, akalypsia or something. It can be caused by like so many different things, but basically it means like when you stare at a stationary object, it appears to be vibrating or moving. And it can be caused by like problems with your eustachian shoes, problems at the back of the eye, brain damage, tumors, series of things. So I then started, and have since then, been noticing every single object in my house, and I can't do anything or look at anything without staring at it like, is this moving? And I'm finding like, I do think this is a legitimate thing, that I like legitimately have something that's a little wonky in my head, and that things are actually like visually moving for me. Like I don't think it's like a hallucination. Like when I felt like things were getting bigger or smaller, I would consider that like a mild case of hallucination. But what I mean by things actually vibrating, like because it's only some objects and not others, I would consider a literal issue and not a hallucination, because people with this issue find that patterned objects or sharp lines or things like that move and other things don't. Anyway, that's been an issue. I haven't even gotten to speak to a doctor about it because my doctor's booked, and I keep trying to book an appointment to try to talk about it and get to the bottom of it. But now that I've noticed it, I can't stop fucking staring at everything and driving myself nuts, because it's like, oh my god, this thing is vibrating, it's moving. And I'm like bending down and like looking from different angles. I'm like, oh my god, this is so weird. And honestly, some days my anxiety like gets to a point with it where I am convinced that there's something seriously wrong with me and that I'm going to die. And sometimes I'm like, am I actually gonna die? And other times I'm like, you're just being irrational, you're fine. Anyway, I do need that actually checked out. But if any of you watching this have this experience where if you stare at like white walls, like the corners where the ceiling turns to the wall, or like if you look at a window very quickly, like it seems to like move a little, or like a barred window or patterns, let me know, because I'm starting to feel like I'm the only one in the world suffering like this. And I don't mean to sound selfish or crazy, because obviously I know so many people are suffering from far more serious things. That's not what I meant. I meant from this specific thing. So if anyone else has this issue, do let me know, because it's driving me nuts. And again, I think it's the anxiety is making me hyper aware of this. Like perhaps this was always the case, but I just got on with my life and I wasn't taking like 20 seconds to stare at an object, and I was just living my life normally, and now I have this hyper awareness. Anyway, then it shifted from that. Well, it's still focused on that, but I started a diet like a week ago, and I don't know if this is related or not because I've increased my calories and I'm still having this problem. But like 3 days ago, I started to realize I was having tingling in 2 of my toes and it spread up my leg. So I went to the hospital because I really wanted to just make sure there was no stroke or anything going on. And I had a CT scan on my brain. Everything came back normal. Yet somehow I still went home convincing myself that maybe they gave me the wrong results, or maybe they gave me someone else's results, or there's a problem that they didn't see that would have shown up later. And I've been having this tingling now on and off in my left leg and now in my left hand, and then sometimes very mildly in the right side too, which it's more reassuring when I get it in both sides than one side. And I don't know what it is because I got tested for everything and I'm not deficient. So I have no idea why I keep having tingles going through my hands, arms, legs. It like goes up here on it's like on and off throughout the day. But every time I'm feeling it, I start having a panic attack because I'm convinced like, what if it's a stroke? What if it's this? What if it's that? And then on top of that, I'm having the tingles and then the visionary, like things are shaking. And I just start telling myself like there's something seriously wrong with my brain. Like, what if I just totally fall apart? What if I just can't control my limbs anymore? What if I become paralyzed? Like, I don't know. Like, some of this is like real problems, and then another huge part of it is my anxiety makes everything worse. So I get a problem, I get anxious about the problem, and then the problem gets a lot worse. So I have been dealing with this, and I did not want to make a video to talk about it because I'm like, I sound like a crazy person. People are gonna think I have serious issues. But this is what I'm going through. I'm going through like really, really severe anxiety, and I'm also having physical problems on top of it. So I just feel so alone and so scared during this time of my life, and it's been really, really rough. And I'm just making this video because I hope to God that a month or 2 from now I can look back on this and be like, oh my God, I was in that place and I'm doing so good right now. Because when I'm in this place like I'm in right now, it feels like things will never get better. And it's very scary feeling like you're stuck in a sensation or a problem or a physical thing that you're feeling like it will never stop. And it scares me. Every time I stand up, I feel scared because I'm noticing things moving, and every time I lay down to rest, I'm scared because I'm feeling these tingles and worrying about worst case scenario. So I'm just really hoping I can come back and be in a really healthy, positive mental space and be able to say that all of this has passed, or that I figured out what was wrong, or that it was psychosomatic. I don't know. I feel like it's not all psychosomatic because sometimes I can be reading a book or not even focusing on something and I'll start having a symptom. Anyway, if anyone else has ever experienced anything like this, please do let me know. And this video is probably really boring for the average person because it's not very relatable, I guess. But I just wanted to let you guys know how I'm doing, what I'm going through, and I do have plans to try and get more support and help. And I'm just going through a hard time, and I'm quite sad. I have a lot of postpartum depression, and I find myself crying most days. But I'm not for medication. I understand why people take it, and I'm all in support if it helps you, but I've taken a lot of anxiety and, medications in my time, and it's not for me. But obviously if things get worse and worse and worse, then I will go ahead and take medication. But I'm really hoping that I can just start to get better over time and rest. Because I've been finding it hard taking care of both of my kids, and I've had my 3-year-old's dad take care of her a lot recently because I've been really struggling, and I just want to get better and feel better for my baby girls, so that I can be more exciting and fun and not constantly in a state of anxiety. Anyway, I hope everyone else watching this is doing okay, that life's going well, sending lots of hugs and warmth your way, and we'll see you in my next video.